Alright, guys, I'm just literally continuing where I left off because my tablet cut me off. So, anyways, including One Nation Party Senators Pauline Hanson and Malcolm Roberts and United Australia Party Senator Ralph Babbitt. The rally was also attended by a group of about 100 counter-protesters, including Senator Lydia Thorpe, who, on video footage of the rally, appeared to be pulled to the ground by police after she approached Keen Minshall, while shouting, quote, "You're not welcome here." New Zealand. Following her Melbourne event, Keen Minshall permission to enter New Zealand was put under review by Immigration New Zealand on the 20th of March. In response to Centre-Right National Party's Deputy Leader Nicola Willis argued that Keen Minshall should be allowed into the country on free speech grounds. By contrast, the left-wing Green Party's immigration spokesperson Ricardo Menendez March opposed Keen Minshall's entry on the ground that her presence would endanger the rainbow and Muslim communities. So even if there was so hypothetically, just even if there was normal, just rivalries, not necessarily full stop, punching in the streets hate crimes, at the level that we're seeing lately, but as soon as this chick seems to come into focus in any place she goes, the people that rally by her are freaking out, the people that oppose her are freaking out, and hypothetically, if these people were already at odds slightly with each other, even though there's gay Muslims, but Muslims as in non-gay and just gay people as in nothing specific outside of that, whatever that means, as soon as this chick enters that fray in that location, there's just more violence than usual, I assume. Alright. That's pretty sad, honestly. The review decided to allow her to enter New Zealand on March 23rd. On March 23rd, a coalition of Rainbow support groups filed for a judicial report of the New Zealand. On the 20... Wow. Yeah, judicial review of the decision to allow Keen Minshall to enter New Zealand. The following day, the High Court at Wellington ruled the decision was lawful. Before Keen Minshall held events in New Zealand, Immigration Minister Michael Wood described her views as inflammatory, vile, and incorrect, end quote. Alright, I'm just scrolling because I don't know if I want to read all of what she has to say, but I might just do it anyways, unfortunately. Alright. On the 25th of March, a rally organized by Keen Minshall in central Auckland was also attended by counter-protesters estimated to number in the thousands, who made noise and chanted loudly before her appearance. Tomato juice was poured on Keen Minshall by intersex activist Eliana Rabishkin. Okay, sorry, I can't pronounce that too well. And Keen Minshall left the police with a police escort before she could speak. The rally was also attended by a small group wearing Azov Battalion and Boogaloo Boys insignia, as well as a member of the White Nationalist Action Zealandia group, and the members of right-wing groups including New Conservative Party, Voices for Freedom, and Counterspin Media. So, pretty sure we know what the Boogaloo Boys are. Oh, yeah, so first, the Azov Battalion, because curious about that. I've heard about this while watching political streams, but it of course just never really, stuck with me too well, unfortunately, because there's so much going on, and a lot of background to the stuff we're seeing today. The Azov Assault Brigade is a formation of the National Guard of Ukraine, formerly based in Mariupol in the coastal region of the Sea of Azov, from which it derives its name. It was founded in May 2014 as the Azov Battalion, a volunteer paramilitary under the command of Andrei Beletsky to fight pro-Russian forces in a war in so this is probably a good thing overall, because fuck Putin for the most part. Alright, Boogaloo Boys. The Boogaloo movement, whose adherents are often referred to as Boogaloo Boys or Boogaloo Boys, is a loosely organized far-right anti-government extremist movement in the United States. It has also been described as a militia. Adherents say they are preparing for or seek to incite a second American Civil War or Second American Revolution, which they call the Boogaloo or the Boog. Okay. The movement consists of pro-gun, anti-government groups. The specific ideology of each group varies, and views on topics such as race differ widely. Some are white supremacists or neo-Nazis, groups who are believe that the impending unrest will be a race war. There are also groups that condemn racism and white supremacy, although attempts by some individuals, elements of the movement to support anti-racist groups and movements such as Black Lives Matter have been met with wariness and skepticism, and researchers and journalists are unsure if they are genuine or meant to obscure the movement's actual objectives. Yeah, I would have to say they're unfortunately a psyop operation placed into the movement to sort of change the moral values in the movement. Like, hypothetically, if you could talk to them and say, hey, maybe if you just met some of these minorities you hate, maybe you could feel less threatened by them, or whatever. I mean, this is mostly an anti-government thing, but they attended her rally, right? So they're probably anti-trans, and like they probably never met a trans person in real life. So, alright, so what the hell is Action Zealandia? Action Zealandia is a white supremacist group in New Zealand that emerged following the Christchurch mosque shooting in the 2019 as a successor to an earlier group called the Dominion Movement. According to Newshub, Action Zealandia has restricted its membership to specifically fit, tidy European males of sound mind and good character. In addition to its online activities, the group has plastered stickers, posted banners, and networked with other far-right neo-Nazi groups in New Zealand and abroad. Action Zealandia, that's a weird thing to have to say, honestly, in a pronouncing way, has also attracted media attention from members, made an online threat against Church Christ's AI Noor Mosque, attempted to start a terror cell, purchased weapons, and participated in the 2022 Wellington protest. Damn. Ideologies and goals. Okay. According to the group's website, Action Zealandia's stated goal is to build a community for European New Zealanders. They claim that European identity is under threat from so-called demographic replacement. Oh. So, this is kind of silly because the only thing that technically changes with demographic replacement in terms of how demographers say the replacement rate, which is being replaced by the next children when the parents die. This isn't about a this language in demography is not a scheme against white people when they're talking about it. So I just think conspiracy theorists grabbed hold of demographer language, even though demographers are racist because some of them do uphold the white nationalist, yada yada. But yes, um, the only thing that'll change is your skin color, I guess, and like seriously, like I've seen people at my job who are Hispanic who are endowed in what we would call American valued shit, um, like Harley Quinn shirt and like things from Hollywood, you know, and stuff like that. And this dude was wearing a Rocco's Modern Life shirt and a bunch of Nickelodeon stuff. So it's like, how can you claim that these people are just gonna wash away our values, and whose values specifically, and what values? Like, I bet So honestly, that's like it brings such nostalgia every time I go to work. you know. Okay. Demographic replacement caused by economically motivated migration by non-European peoples. Action Zealandia also emphasizes masculinity, physical fitness, and condemns drug use and so-called sexual deviancy. Wait, what? Oh. Of course, they would look for physical fitness and wow, definitely Nazi shit. The bravado and enhancement of your physique. Damn. In addition, Action Zealandia promotes nationalism, environmental sustainability, and opposes free market capitalism and mass migration as detrimental to national identity and environmental sustainability. So this group would be out there promoting population control is necessary for environmental stability. They would be out there saying the global south, black people, or whoever's poor over there need to be removed, and then the world will be saved or something. Like, I mean, these people aren't the only ones. Like, these aren't even NGOs as far as I know. Alright, I don't want to go too deep into that. I gotta stay on topic. Alright. 3 more of these associates of Kelly, and we'll be on to reading more of this. Okay. New Conservative is a conservative political party in New Zealand. Some opponents and observers have described the party's policies as far right, though the party now states it has moved to a, quote, more centrist position under new leaderships. It advocates for lower taxation, anti-abortion measures, and austerity cuts. It was founded as the Conservative Party in August 2011 by businessman and political activist Colin Craig, who led the party from its foundation until his resignation in June 2015. The party had 2 members on the Upper Harbour local board in Auckland from 2013 to 2016. The party has contested the 4 general elections from 2011 from 2020 without winning any seats. At the 2014 election, it received 3.97% of the vote. At the 2020 general election, they gained 1.5% of the vote. The party changed to its current name in November 2017. So, I don't even... So, these are small stats, obviously, but they amount to like millions of people, I assume, so... Yeah, that's something kind of freaked out to be worried about there. Like that, I know that's like nothing compared to like who we're on average voting for. But anyways, Voices for Freedom. All right, Voices for Freedom is a vaccine hesitancy advocacy group in New Zealand that formed in December 2020 to oppose the New Zealand government's COVID-19 mitigation policies and vaccination rollout. The organization is founded and led by food blogger and former Advance New Zealand candidate Claire Deeks. Libby Johnson, and Alia Bland. Voices for Freedom has been criticized by NZ Skepticisms, the spin off editor Madeline Chapman, and Fact Otaria for spreading misinformation about COVID-19 and vaccinations. Okay, so yeah, I was uh, interested in the Nuremberg Code for a second, which was anti-experimentation on humans, and I was thinking, since the comment section of that book was just full of like COVID vaccine, COVID vaccine, and I believe the one thing that the COVID vaccine has nothing to do with the Nuremberg Code is because the Nuremberg Code doesn't take into consideration a health crisis, human experimentation, and wanting to like just test on people with no verification or uh, and with like no actual science to it. You might, I don't know, but yeah, I think that's a good distinction from the conspiracy theories that people would come out here with the COVID-19 vaccine. Like, I almost wanted to take like 20 vaccines, or at least like 4 boosters or something, just to, you know, because back then I was like super freaked out by COVID. Like, I can't even tell you how freaked out I was, guys. Okay. And it just wouldn't be good business to kill off or make people weaker by giving them vaccines. Like, they want workers, they don't want people dead, so they know what they're doing, and it's a health crisis. This is not a Nuremberg Code, so yes, it's fine. That's all I have to say about that, honestly. I don't care. Alright, counterspin media. That sounds cool. Alright. Counterspin Media is a far-right anti-vaccine and conspiracy theorist New Zealand online media platform that was founded in May 2021. Counterspin Media has opposed the New Zealand government's response to COVID-19 pandemic, including COVID-19 vaccination policies. In early 2022, the group played a leading role in a 2022 Wellington protest. Newsroom journalist Mark Dalder has described Counterspin Media as, quote, one of the largest platforms for conspiracy theorists and far-right ideology in New Zealand. While staff journalist Charlie Mitchell has described it as New Zealand's equivalent of the U.S. website InfoWars. In August 2022, Counterspin Media's founder, uh, Kelvin Alp and Hannah Sparrer, were arrested and charged by New Zealand police for allegedly distributing objectionable material. Shortly after Alp was banned from Instagram for encouraging violence, they were subsequently arraigned and brought to Christchurch Central Court, during which supporters gathered around the Alp and Sparrer refused to appear in the dock. They appeared at the court again that December, with no visible supporters outside. Content and coverage. So, this almost isn't really important anymore in terms of what I'm talking about, because this is mostly about anti-COVID stuff, but again, these are the types of people that are surrounding a turf, so this is just also what these groups believe in, even though it's not directly like what they're for in their group. Alright. Keen Minchell later said in a live stream video on her YouTube channel that she might not go to her Wellington event scheduled for the following day, and Let Women Speak New Zealand subsequently announced the Wellington event was cancelled. According to Radio New Zealand, quote, much of the early reporting on the counter-protest also painted it as either relatively peaceful or not particularly aggressive compared to other demonstrations like the Parliament occupation, end quote, and included descriptions of confrontations between supporters and protesters, as well as Keen Minchell being drowned out by noise from protesters, while far-right media outlet Counterspin Media promoted, quote, claims of rampant and unchecked violence, end quote. The Weekend collective talk show on News Talk ZB hosted callers criticizing the protesters and commenting Chris Trotter and platform host Sean Plunkett and Today FM host Rachel Smiley criticized the protesters. In response to the Auckland protest, Keane Mitchell supporters in the United Kingdom called for the boycott of New Zealand products and held a protest at the New Zealand High Commission in London. On the 26th of March, Keane Mitchell left New Zealand saying it was, quote, worst place for women she has ever visited, end quote, and described the media as corrupt and dishonest. J.K. Rowling tweeted that the mob, quote, has assaulted women standing up for their rights, end quote. After Keane Mitchell's New Zealand visit, Paul Hunt, Chief Commissioner at the New Zealand Human Rights Commission, wrote an opinion article in New Zealand Herald about his attendance at the Wellington pro-trans rally, including his opinion that, quote, it's possible and crucial to support both trans and cisgender women, end quote, and, quote, give trans people's historical persecution as they grow in strength and confidence, and it is unrealistic to expect them to stand aside and do and say nothing. The state had a human rights responsibility to make arrangements for Keane Mitchell to speak without being assaulted, intimidated, or shouted down. That did not happen, end quote. Referring to March 25th rally in Auckland, National Party police spokesperson Mark Mitchell called for, quote, a serious review into the failure of police to protect Keane Mitchell from being assaulted, end quote. And earlier, she did get stuff thrown at her, like tomato juice or whatever. Technically, that's assault. Like, are we not saying that's assault? Or is this, like, in comparison to what she is she's way more damaging to other people for what she promotes and who rallies around her compared to the tomato juice thrown at her. But like it would have been safe to try and protect her too. I imagine more would have happened to her if it wasn't for security. So Jesus Christ. Assaulted, yes, but I wonder under what type of symbolic image they're using. Like the image of a woman being beaten down. Like, this isn't like that. This isn't a normal woman being beaten down. This is literally a terrible human being being berated and I guess having juice thrown at her, which is assault, but this isn't sexist or whatever. Like, you know what I'm trying to say. Like walking down an alleyway and getting catcalled and like grabbed. That's not that type of assaulted. This is almost like a politically justified, even though it's a crazy, terrible situation. In early April 2023, Radio New Zealand reported that Keane Mitchell's New Zealand visit had led to a massive increase in online transphobia within the country. Public figures such as Green Party co-leader Darama Davidson and transgender activist Sheena Lau, who participated in the counter-protest, were key targets of online hostility and threats. According to the Disinformation Project research Sanjana Hadawu, anti-vaccine and anti-mandate groups over the past fortnight had distributed, quote, extraordinary violent content disseminated by Australian neo-Nazi, neo-fascist, and anti-Semitic groups and networks. Similarly, counter-extremism researcher Brian C. Clark observed that extremist groups in New Zealand had adopted transphobia as, quote, a wedge issue to exploit public fear about an already marginalized group and, quote, get themselves closer to the mainstream. Yep, probably. Alright, political career. Finally, done with this chick. In September 2022, in response to Eddie Izzard's announcements of her plan to run for MP of Shafferfield Central, Keen Minshall, announced her own plan to run, saying she would, quote, campaign on the basis of repealing the Gender Recognition Act and erase the word gender during her live-streamed announcement. She also called the jihad atrocious and, quote, a tool of oppression, end quote, and referred to Tucker Carlson as, quote, an intelligent, really loving, lovely, welcoming, warmly welcoming man. Following her Auckland rally in March 2023, Jean Mitchell announced her intention to form her own party, the Party of Women, and take on Labour leader Keir Starmer in his Holborn and St Pancras constituency at the next United Kingdom general election. Alright. So this chick is all around terrible, and she just totally flat out denies, like, them being on her side and her, like, so again, useful idiot and not meaning to cause Nazi uprisings in her areas every time she goes somewhere, or she's lying. I mean, I would definitely cut her flights to places at this point if this is really her just being the flame to the gas that happens to already be there. Okay. So, on top of everything else that's being banned, like I mentioned in the beginning of the first video with Kelly J, World Chess just placed restrictions on both trans women and trans men. Rugby, swimming, track, and field. Transgender women have been banned from international women's events in a growing number of sports. The latest to make the checklist is chess. The International Chess Federation, known as FIDE, will effectively stop allowing transgender women from participating in women's competitions until further analysis can be made, which can take up to 2 years. I imagine this 2 years has nothing to do with whether or not you've been transitioned enough in your hormonal balance. Usually that's a physical edge issue when it comes to physical sports, but I don't think this has anything to do with chess, and it's just flat out sexist, or like men specifically don't want to either battle a woman, or they don't want to battle what they feel is a, quote, woman dressed, or men dressed as a woman, and so they'll feel demasculated if they lose to a quote unquote man who's dressed up. I can, it's, I don't think women are making this distinction in that way. They're probably just like, it's not fair because women's spaces. That's probably their only issue with this. Okay. The organization will also remove some titles won by players who won in women's categories and later transitioned to male. It will also remove some titles won by transgender men. The new policies are stated to go into effect on Monday. FIDE recognizes that this is an evolving issue for chess, and that besides technical regulations on transgender regulations, further policy may need to be evolved in the future in line with research evidence, end quote, the Federation wrote in a statement. Over the past few days, several chess federations have came out against the new changes, including in the US and Germany, end quote, quote, if the person is legally recognized as a woman, it is incomprehensible to use what FIDE still wants to check and why it needs 2 years for this. Yeah, what do you need 2 years to check for? You're just going to wait for the far right to be even more entrenched than they already are, and you can be like, oh, wow, we can't now, because, drama. The German Chess Federation wrote Friday in a statement. The new regulations around transgender players. Under new guidelines, transgender people will still be allowed to compete in the open section of tournaments, where men and women typically compete against one another. But many elite events that are exclusively for women will be off limits for people who change their gender from male to female until further analysis is made by FIDE, which the group described could take up to 2 years. FIDE also ruled that it has the right to make an appropriate mark of a gender change in a player's profile, as well as inform tournaments of any transgender competitors. I imagine this will make it so that there's even no point to play if you can't get into the elite section of it. Like, you're always gonna be playing in like the smaller leagues. That's lame. That's so fucking crazy. Not just transphobic. This is literally sexist. Okay. Transgender men who won in women's events before transitioning will have their titles abolished. Again, this is such the stupidest culture war that they're enacting right now for us all to fight over. Like, why chess? Like, we knew that it wasn't going to stop at sports participation, and it was going to expand to other issues, or trans people were going to just be unable to do anything in life. But activities and fun, like chess, Jesus. What, are you going to not be able to play on Xbox Live or something? Jeez. If that's even a thing anymore, I'm pretty sure it's not. Oh my god. Okay, I'm sorry guys. This is blowing my mind. I haven't even told my husband of this. Jeez. Transgender men who won in women's events before transitioning will have their titles abolished. The titles could be renewed if a player detransitions and can, quote, provide the ownership of the respective FIDE ID that holds the title, quote, end quote. The Federation said abolishing titles may also be transferred into a general title of the same or lower level, end quote. Meanwhile, transgender women can keep any title they earned before they transitioned. FIDE's reasoning behind the changes. FIDE said it needed to make regulations on transgender players after receiving an influx of requests for gender changes. It ultimately ruled that, quote, change of gender is change that has significant impact on a player's status. That argument has been common among international governing bodies that oversee sports with intense physical activity, which chess does not. So, is this 2 years just for the technical paperwork and the data that they're putting into the system? Oh my gosh, I don't think it's that, but I want to think that even though this is like coming off as pretty transphobic, most definitely, that there has to be some like technicality here. Like, this is so dumb. The National Center for Transgender Equality said the new guidelines were insulting to all women in the game itself. Quote, it assumes that cis women couldn't be competitive against cis men and relies on ignorant anti-trans ideas, end quote. The center wrote on X, the site formerly known as Twitter. Similarly, chess stars across the world have spoken out against FIDE's new policies, saying they will bring unnecessary harm to transgender competitors. Quote, the new regulations will make trans chess players all over the world face a horrible dilemma: transition or quit chess. End quote. Professional chess player Yoshi Iglesias wrote on X. And this brings me to my next point, which is people who don't want people, or people who are only anti-trans in as much as they're entering cis women spaces, assuming these people don't want trans people dead, it's just certain spaces they don't want trans people in. So that would make you almost like a Nazi sympathizer. And I know that sounds reaching, but honestly, with the way this is headed, CEOs and investigators and shit trafficking people, you have to realize this is not going to stop at simple things that come off like optically fair. Like, so you have to know this isn't about just bathroom stuff or sports stuff. This is going into as far as like playing mind games. Like, so Martin Niemoller, first they came for. Now, I'm obviously using this as symbolic of a man who was a sympathizer of the Nazis and Hitler himself, but then realized it was going too far, but